Hello everyone, today we're going to be finishing up by cleaning up our tests. So I'm going to create a new issue just so that we can keep track of this and say clean up test coverage. Mostly because a lot of our tests are kind of in a weird state right now. We have, if we come in here, I think I just stashed everything. So if I actually do a checkout for this branch, we can click create branch. We can click the green little create branch button that's off screen. We can paste this in. And now if we do a npm run coverage, we'll see that our tests really aren't in a good state. So one of them should be failing, and then our coverage as a whole should also be kind of not good. So there's quite a few things we actually need to address here. The first one is our post, I think our post edit form should also be, that's probably the one that's not working. So we have to fix that one, although our post edit form currently says it has 100% code coverage. The test doesn't work, so I wouldn't really say it's covered. I mean, I guess it's covered, but it also feels like maybe if it's not working, we shouldn't count that as a green line. Then we also have our post form where we added the image upload, so we have to fix that. And then for our post list, this is our index page. When we last left off, our post list actually has this conditional branch right here where we check if the image URL exists. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pop into the post edit form component as well as the post edit form test, because these are the ones that are failing right now. So if we scroll up here, we can see the post edit form. This test right here is actually the one that's failing. So let's go ahead and let's do a control F for that test. And in here, what we're going to find is that our tests are failing because we have this like weird expected object. But actually what we have now is some form data that we're getting back from that object. So right here, we're checking for this new post object, but that's not actually what we have anymore. So first of all, our new post now needs to have a image, which we can just set to null. Then we actually have to create some form data. So let's say const form data equals object to form data. And then we can pass this in. Now we could just also create a form data object, but because our form data helper is functional, we can probably just use this code and we should be fine right here. So we can use this. If we scroll up to the top, we can see we're already importing it. So that's good. So that gives us our form data. Next, what we want to do in our form data, we can actually take this and just pass this into our expect right here. So we expect this to be called one time, but we want to expect it to be called with the form data. Now let's come over here. Let's run our npm run coverage with those changes, and let's see what else is breaking. So we can see our post edit form should no longer be breaking at this point because we have this object to form data being used. And just in case, I'm realizing now, there may be another area where this breaks. I don't know yet. If it does, though, again, all of the source code will be available online. You can just copy and paste the test. I feel like I fixed two things in this file, but I guess it's telling me I only fixed one, which is a little weird, but I guess it is what it is. So that takes care of that. Let's move over to the next one, which I guess would be let's do the post form next. So in our post form, we have our post form component. We also have our post form test. We can open in another file. So for our post form, we're just straight up missing coverage for lines 43 to 47, which is going to be this block right here, which is effectively just adding an image. So let's come over to our post form test, and I'll show you how we can do that real quick. So we'll come down to the bottom. We can actually just like make sure we leave all of this a little bit more readable. We can, collapse all those, and then we can just say this just handles image file upload. And then we do our usual arrow function. And then in here, what we want to do for handling this image file upload is, once again, we want to have our a couple of our mocks. So we'll say, all right, we need a mock for submit, button text, and header text. We then want to spy on our console again. So we'll use our console spy, just like we've been doing. We can then, once again, call that render. We can get the get by label text and pass in the post form, right? So that's pretty good. And now down here is where we actually want to do our mocking. First, I'm going to do an expect down here just so that all these squiggly lines go away so we can actually see what we're doing. And then we want to mock a file upload, which we'll do by saying const file equals new file. And then we need to pass in a sample file. And then we can give it a sample.png, and then we can do a type of image/png because we of course accept image slash asterisk. So this is fine. And then we can do a const image input equals the get by label text for our image/I, just like that. So that gives us both of those. We can then say fire event change our image input with a target with the files set to an array with just the file inside of it. Okay, and then we can come down here. We can now say expect the console spy to have been called with the file, which is only going to work because in our post form right now we have this console log where we're logging out this file. So let's go ahead and let's run our npm run coverage. We could of course just run the individual tests, but at a certain point it's just fun to watch these numbers change. So now we have that. Let's go into our post list, which has one conditional branch, just that single if statement on line 49 that we actually need to clean up a bit. To do that, let's close both of these. Then let's go into our post list. And I'm using Control P to navigate like this. And then I just kind of vaguely type what I'm looking for. So sometimes I don't even include the right periods. It just kind of matches based on the order things are typed in. So this gives us our post form test, or sorry, our post list test. I'm in the wrong file over here. Post list test. And then in this post list test, what we want to do is handle the URL uploading. So for that, we actually have two cases. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create a completely different describe block. And then here I'm going to do a const mock post with image URL and set this equal to something that actually has the image URL. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do a const mock post without image, or sorry, without image URL. And it's going to be the same thing. We'll just leave it as null. We can then come down here. I'm actually going to delete this because it's getting in the way. I'm going to come down here and then we can say, all right, let's do our first test and we'll test the renders the image when image URL exists, which is our happy path. Always like testing that one first because that one means there's usually something cool for me to see on screen. So what we can do is we can say, all right, posts service dot fetch all posts dot mock resolved value. And then for this resolved value, we just want the mock post with image URL because we only really need one to test this, right? Then we can do a render for a post list component and do the wrapper with the memory router again. We can then come down here and do an await, wait for our arrow function, and we can do a screen.getByText after we've gotten the render component done. We'll just say post with image. Okay, which means that is actually what I had for the title up here. So for our first one, we had a title of post with image, and then I had a body that just said hello image like this. Let me put the quote back. And then for the second line, I had effectively this for our title and our body. So title, colon, and then body, and then comma. And then instead of doing get by text post with image, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say mock post with image URL dot title, just because I hate having these things repeated the way the GitHub Copilot wants it done. So that gives us our first one. But of course, because this is an await, that means we have to set this to be async. So there's our await wait for right there. Then we can do a const img element equals screen.getByAltText for the mock post with image URL.title. And then we can do a expect image element to be in document, and we can expect the image element src to be the mock post with image URL.image URL. Okay, so that's our first one. So let's go ahead and let's run this and see if this passes. It'll take a second, and we're running into an issue here with our await wait for, which means I probably butchered the syntax a little bit. So we have our await wait for, arrow function, screen.getByText. Oh, and this is why we actually need this to be an array, I think. Let's go ahead and let's try this again. Let's run this test. I didn't realize that I had that set up like that. Let's go ahead. Now we're getting a different error. There we go. Okay, so now it's telling us it looks like undefined was passed instead of a matcher. Did you do something like get by text undefined? So it looks like it's not happy with this mock post with image URL. The reason for that is now what we have here is we have to grab the 0th element from it. So let's go ahead and let's do that just to make sure that our code stays, you know, maintainable, because now we still only have to change it up here. There we go. So after my couple of mistakes there, we're good to go. So that's our first happy path. Now let's do the unhappy path, which is going to be a test. Renders the placeholder div when image URL does not exist. And we can say this is an async arrow function. And then in here, we're going to do largely the same thing. We're just going to be replacing it with the mocked post without image URL. But this, once again, is going to have to be an array. So let's just go ahead and let's do that. Then we can go ahead, we can render our post list component again. We can then do a wait for, and then I'll let GitHub Copilot hopefully do this the correct way. Looks like that's good. We can then do a const image. Actually, it's going to be not this. We can do a const placeholder div is equal to screen.get by test ID or a post image stub, which means we're going to come into our post list real quick. And in here, we have our div for our post image stub. We want to also give this that data. So we want this to have that data dash, what do we have? Test ID right there, test ID of post image stub. There we go. And then we can come in here and we can say get by test ID for the post image stub. And then we can finally do a expect placeholder div to be in document, just like that. So that should be fine. Let's go ahead and let's run this, and then we'll see if this one works. And we can see here this one passed. So now let's come back over to our terminal. Let's run a npm run coverage again for one final time this week and hopefully see everything pass. Looks like everything did pass. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say get, okay, that terminal's still not working. I'm going to do a git add dot from here, git commit -m added, or I guess like refactored test coverage. And we can do a git push to push this up. Then we'll come over to our GitHub repo. We can go over to the code again. Should see this one get pushed up. We can do a compare and pull request. We can see that right here. I'm actually going to do a F11 real quick and just screenshot this. Just because I think it's funny that people actually do this. And then we can go ahead and do a create pull request. There we go. And there's all of our passing tests. So we can look at that and we can say, yeah, that's probably true. And then we can go ahead and merge this. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I guess I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do next. And hopefully I will see you in the next one.